and I'm going to go back to SAP for this last one. And this is near and dear to Avery's heart and day-to-day existence, and that's social media at SAP. Avery and I have been working with SAP on social media for almost 10 years. Started out little bits and pieces, but they've just really evolved. And I think what I wanted to talk about is just the culture that they've created around social media throughout their company. And I've noticed this, and I'm sure Avery has too, sort of evolve over 10 years. If you think back to 2010 or so, social media was very active, prevalent, but there was a lot of debate and skepticism about, well, it's not really a business thing, and there's not really a lot of value of using social media for business. And so a lot of companies would, because they had to, they'd have their website and they'd have a small group of social media people that were sort of dabbling here and there. And what SAP did at a very early stage is they really leaned in and they sort of placed their bet. I think it was, to some degree, a lot of the credit goes to the CMO they had at that time, who was very influential, very well liked, and a huge social media sort of leader. So he was really driving the behavior. But it was much bigger than that. They really 10 years ago, which was, that was a totally different environment. They were training people across their company. We did a lot of, not a lot, but a fair number of executive social media training sessions where we sort of trained somebody at a fairly high level how to operate on social media, how to do it well, what type of content to put in there. And then SAP started investing across the board in resources and training materials to help people at all levels learn about social media and also develop the confidence to use it. So what they then did is slowly, it was sort of a slow drumbeat over the next 10 years, continues today, is sort of integrated and sort of made it part of people's day-to-day jobs to participate on social media. And not just, doing stuff that looks like it's coming from, because they have to for their job. They were encouraged to express their opinion, talk about, their own personal beliefs and what their interests around the technology and the different segments. And so really creating it so that there was no, separate social media. And
we lost Jeff
there.
So,
but Avery, this was
I can talk a little bit more to it. They did it became a part of their corporate culture, and they embraced it. And
they're able to quickly use some of these new social media innovations, like what we're doing today with live streaming. They do that all the time, and they also have a content factory. The other thing that I think they've really gotten is when we talk to companies about social media, and really anybody, one of the biggest challenges is having enough content to keep things fresh. That can become almost a job on its own. Well, SAP, because they've sort of been thinking about this for so long, they have these sort of machine. It's almost like a machine that's creating content throughout the company that can then very easily be adapted to social media and fulfill an editorial calendar, or just add videos and other types of content to social media to keep it fresh. So, they're now doing things, I think, very efficiently, very cost effectively. And we're really getting more from social media as a marketing tool than I think the majority of companies out there. Avery, anything you'd add to that? You've been part of this day to day.
I'm going to add two things. One that I think you were talking about when you froze, because there was about a 45-second window there we were chatting where you went away, and so we were starting to talk, and then you came back. So all is good. But the thing is that they really embrace. They're not afraid to try new things when they first come out. They don't wait for it to become popular and the thing to do. They embrace trying those new things. And I think it's cool because they're not a small startup, right? They're a big company, but they have that startup mentality when it comes to social media of trying new things when they're there. And, sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But that's okay, right? That's how they get to be innovative. And the thing I always loved about SAP and always using them and as an example when I teach is back 10 years ago, everyone thought, Well, social media, yeah, it works for business to consumer, but it's not really a B2B thing. And it's like when you're doing social media, you're not talking to buildings. When you're doing B2B social media, you're still talking to people.
Yeah.
And that's just core to SAP's belief. And then as a result of doing all those things, they have better connections and better engagement and better relationships with their customers, the mentors, influencers, other audiences. And then they set up now the ability to, when there's good content to share, they have an internal tool to share that out with everyone in SAP so that it's readily available for employees to share if they want to and have conversations on. So they just do an excellent job.
I agree.
It's terrific.
It's fun to watch.
This makes me wonder, and I think both of you touched on this, but I look at a lot of other tech companies, and you usually have a few bloggers, a few people doing video interviews, for example, a few. So 80-20 rule, probably 80% of people in the staff don't do anything, 20% or even fewer. And SAP seems to have cracked the code. I am curious, was this sort of like a top-down? I know you said that the culture embraced this, you had the content factory. Was there like an incentive or some top-down mandate that said, hey guys, everyone, all hands on deck, let's be doing a lot more social media? I'm just curious, what was the motivation or incentive behind this?
Yeah, there was absolutely a top down, but it was also bottom up, and it was an expectation. So I think I started to mention it, but I'd say sort of three different things. The first is they had some executives, specifically the CMO, but some others who were real leaders and led by example. And that was starting many years ago. The second was they did some active training. So sort of the carrot idea, where they would say, here's some resources. If you want to learn how to do social media, come listen, and we'll teach you, some techniques on how to write, how to create content, what to use and what to get out of it. And then the third is, I wouldn't call it necessarily a stick, but there's definitely an expectation that if you're, for example, a product marketing manager at SAP, that you're actively using social media to promote your activities and to help, turbocharge some of the things that you're part of doing. So I think it's all
part of their MBO, for example, in their job.
I don't know. We're not close enough to that, but it does. I think there is sort of both. That there's maybe not. It's required, but it's sort of expected. If you're not doing it, I think you get asked, why aren't you, participating in social media? Why aren't you blogging? So, Avery, you agree or anything you'd add?
I agree. And I would also add, and I can use the SAP Analytics as an example. When we pretty much launched the social media program back in 2010, trying to get people to do video and blogs. It was especially video because that's scary. It's a little bit like herding cats, right? It was hard to begin with. So when you have to do things to make the people feel comfortable doing video. So and blogging. So on video side, we tell them it's not live, right? It's recorded. So we can record it as many times as you want. We give them tips and pointers on how to go about shooting those videos. And, not unlike the blog post series that I'm doing right now, right? We get them all comfortable with that. And on blogging, what we did is we set up a multi-author blogging approach where we managed the editorial calendar, the bloggers, we encouraged them to write their blog posts, gave them tips and best practices, but then we had an editor review them. And the goal of the editor wasn't to change their voice and completely rewrite it. It was just to give them their best voice and help educate them. And so over time, we built it up to where people were coming to us, hey, we want to shoot video at the event. We want to write blogs on this topic and this topic, because we took the time to help them get comfortable with it. So it's kind of the tying into the training that Jeff talked about, but it's also the social media team taking the initiative to help the product marketing groups, for example, get comfortable with the concept of videos and blogging.
Brilliant. What a great model for the industry.